Hello, and welcome to the show. On a previous episode, I took some old PNP transistors I ordered 20 years ago for a failed fuzz face build and turned them into a successful fuzz face build. Today, I'm going to build another fuzz face, just with a few tweaks to it, and it's actually a commission. So, stick around and check that out. When I first turned on this pedal, I wasn't sure what to make of it. Indeed, the build that I did many years ago was probably fine, I just didn't appreciate it. But this guy, well, now with a little bit more taste and class, it's actually grown on me. And I've had some fun playing this pedal now that I understand it better. When word got out to some of my friends, I got a lot of musician friends on my Facebook that I've been building pedals. Well, I ended up picking up a couple commissions, and this is one of them. So it's like, well, sure, why not? I'm in the zone for building pedals right now. What color do you want? Well, they wanted basic black, a little bit boring. Fuzz face is kind of like red, but okay, black. But I went ahead and I used this opportunity to make some changes, some adjustments, some updates. And here's the layout that I came up with. So one of the first changes we're seeing is I'm going to be using transistor sockets. That way I can try some different transistors in it. One of the hardest parts of this is sourcing out the parts. I had some NOS NTE 158 transistors, and in this case I didn't have a source for more of them, but I did find some locally, actually some ECG 158s. Those should be the same thing among some other transistors. So we're going to try some of those, see how they turn out. Now this pedal, I am going to be adding, you see these symbols? Little bias test points. These guys are handy. You can just jam your meter probe right in there and have a nice place to bias it. Right now, my fuzz face, there's little pieces of wire sticking out that I kind of, it's not ideal. Also in this build, I'm completely omitting the DC jack. It's going to be battery only, the way it's meant to be. And you're going to see that this layout is a bit different. In the previous design, we had 100K bias pots on those transistors so we could dial them into the sweet spot. But I found on one of the transistors, the range was too wide. If we look at the Fuzz Face Schematic, this transistor only has an 8.2K on it. So I found when I was trying to dial it in, it was super touchy. Just the slightest little whiff of turn from the screwdriver could throw the voltage off wildly, and it is a multi-turn pot. So in this iteration, we're going down to a 20K trimmer pot, which should be able to give us the range we need, while sticking with the 100K for the second one. The transistors are kind of backwards right now. This is A, that's B, in perspective, Q1, Q2. I should actually call them that. You're gonna notice I got a bunch of stuff going on up here. I have taken some ideas from another fuzz pedal, the Seymour Duncan Tweekfuzz. Here's a schematic that I found for it. I actually got a little bit more going on here. I didn't notice they have filtration here, 22 UF, and of course they have the battery drainer here. Everything else is pretty much exactly identical with the addition of a pull down resistor at the end. That's a good idea. I'm gonna do that. And switchable input capacitors. So basically this first capacitor value here, 2.2 UF, it's rather large. And apparently that's partly responsible for the big woolly sound that it has. If we filter out some more bass, we might actually clean that tone up a bit if that's what we want, and maybe with a sound a little bit more reminiscent to a distortion. I was actually watching a Wampler podcast video and they discussed that. So I decided to look into it. So that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm adding Tweekfuzz switching. Even with these 100K resistors here that I'm not 100% sure what their role is, but we're gonna go ahead and add those. In my layout, I have the stock 2.2U capacitor. I'm gonna have those 100K resistors. I'm gonna have a switch up here, but here is actually gonna be a socket. For the switch position, I'm gonna have a socket so that we can find different values, see what they sound like, pick one we like the most, and ultimately when I deliver this to the guy who wants it, well, we could go through a few of these capacitor values to see which one he likes best, and then okay, those are your two sounds. I've also added this guy right here, currently undefined, but it looks like 220p is going to be the ticket. That's also found on the Tweekfuzz schematic right here. C1, but they didn't bother putting a value on it. That's basically a Miller capacitor, they're calling it, and it's supposed to filter out some of the hiss without actually affecting the tones. So I'm gonna try that. This pedal is noisy as frick, and I know some of that is part of the charm, but if we can take a little bit of that edge off, I think that would be a good idea. So lettuce and tomato. Is that just a overdone dad joke? Let's get building on this. So again, looking at this side, A500K is gonna go over to here. And as is the trick, these TT-P09X5N potentiometers often come in dual gang, in which we do not need the second gang. Shashakagagas chopskis, bud. Now the switch is going to be chassis mounted, so I don't have to worry about mounting it in this iteration. All right, that's the hardest part done. Now the second hardest part is where do we start? Well, there's just so much going on here. Ah, yes, and I'm remembering, I need the sockets to sit as low on the board as possible. So I actually have to drill out the holes. I kind of do that just with the screwdriver. So if I use a drill bit, it's going to be too much. This screwdriver is just the right dimensions. We just open up those holes a little bit, and I get just the right size to press fit the transistor socket into place. Now we have to do the same things. I said we have to do the same things for the test points. Ugh, this works rather well actually. I like it. Where is the other test point? Oh, this one's a bit loose. Let's see if this trick also works on the IC sockets, because those are a pain in the arse to mount. Oh, they're a bit thicker. All right, we're finally to the stage of the game where I gotta start connecting wires. We're a positive ground, so the battery terminal is connecting directly. Oh, let's see if we can get it underneath. Bust out my good wire for this because it's a paid gig, even though I don't think I need a 105C 600 volt insulation for something of this nature. Just good wire though. All right, now I need some switch signal wires for the top. 3 of them. This little area is a bit tight and surgical. Stuff's quite a bit close together. All right, the circuit should be ready. We got these black and 2 green wires that are gonna go to a little switch. And then of course, we have our positive common because it's a positive ground. Black wire from the battery goes directly on the PCB. White is input, blue is output. Socket for the output capacitor, socket for an alternative input capacitor, and hopefully all possible transistors I can get will fit in those sockets. Now we have to fabricate the enclosure. All right, so once again, we got this pupper wrapped up in the painter's tape so that we don't scuff up the enclosure too much while we're building on it. And one of the first things I need to do so that I can space out everything else is it's gonna get a micro switch in the top here. I don't want it to be too close to the top. I'm gonna estimate I probably want it maybe right about here. And with my square, go across. Now, a pro tip when you're taping it up, don't wrap the tape around this side. You want the sides to be as flat as possible so the square indexes correctly. And I do believe these guys are pretty metric. So 6 centimeters, 3 is going to be our center. And now is when we call in a consultant. Pilot that hole, and then it's time to make an impression. Now that drill bit should have been directly the correct size for the micro switch. It's a number 10 hole. And yeah, the micro switch is peeping out. We're gonna be orienting this switch sidewards, basically flickering side to side. This is an E-switch 200 series with the shorter toggle, so it's not sticking out too long. So now that we know where that's sitting, we can start figuring out where we want the board to sit. I'm gonna give it a bit of room so that it clears the switch. That looks about right there. We could possibly still get a DC jack in there if we were inclined. Let's mark center where the pots are. Square it across, square it across. Then we take our PCB, put our pots against it, because those pots aren't in exact. We can't just go, oh, that's 1.5, that's 1.5. The easiest way to do it is I just kind of eyeball where I want them to be. I might use the ruler to make sure that they're even. And I'm gonna mark center. And have your brush handy to get the fluff off. All right, let's pilot those holes. Now we get the cone bit and get it up to size. Do we have enough excursion? No, we gotta bring our deck up. Our deck's gotta go up and down and up and down. That should be it. And now we can test fit. Thanks, Obama. Now we can test fit our circuit board. Should clear the knobs, no problem. Which case is determining where the jacks go now. So we want a bit of clearance from the board. About that much should do. Mark center for this guy. This is a Reen part number, I don't know. Maybe I should write down the part numbers. I don't know. course, the input jack, I want a little bit of clearance. Run wires underneath of it. Call that center. Output jack usually sits like that. Call that center. I don't measure center, I just eyeball center for these ones. We can remove the circuit now and the micro switch. And I know that the placement of those jacks isn't going to interfere with the placement of the push switch. But for the push switch, we will mock up this thing because it's going to sit in here like this. And we want to space the put switch is going to hold the battery roughly in place, but not too tightly. So right about there. Square that across the top, or the side I should say. This next one's across the top. This one we do want to be center, and of course, this box being 6 millimeters. Like, I know you're American, but if you can get your hands on a metric ruler, it'll make working on a Hammond box doing this easier, because you just go right at 3 and you have your center. Let's get these last few holes done. Now the input jack, if I recall correctly, 7/16, and the output jack is 3/8. And the stomp switch is straight up 1/2 inch. All right, now I gotta clean up this mess and set up for assembly. You know, I can't be completely sure which part is my favorite. I really do enjoy building the little perf board circuit. It is a challenging puzzle that's quite enjoyable. But there's something about getting to the assembly process that's just, well, you know, it's rewarding because it's the final push. It's all downhill once you get to this part. However, I still have to add a micro switch onto this guy. And it's not particularly far away. I would pretty much just need but like less than 1 inch of wire. Am I even gonna be able to strip wires this short? Yeah, maybe not. But it's clear to me we gotta kick this old school. For years, I just stripped wires with a pair of tech scissors. Would you believe I once put together something like a 30 channel balanced snake and I stripped all the wires with these scissors? All right, the switch is done now. We can actually put this guy together. So the switch in particular gets a lock washer. The pots do not. Still trying to find a lock washer that fits those pots. And these go on with a 10 mil wrench. It's funny, the pots have 2 different shafts, not by choice. This one kind of looks like it's got a lazy eye. And I don't like the weird little washers that these switches come with, so I'm just using a standard number 10 stainless washer. And for these odd tiny sizes, I have this tiny little adjustable wrench. Okay, that should be good right there. Oh, such a cute little switch. All right, so I like using these jacks, except I've actually found in practice, do not use the little washer that comes with them. That little washer, I dropped one of these pedals one day while it was plugged in, and that washer just caused the jack to like pop off because there's not enough threading to really hold it in place. I'm gonna take this red, bring it down. It trims right about there. Now the red that is the battery contact pretty much goes on the ring. And that's the only thing that goes on there, so. And I will remind you in repetition that I use an isolated input jack and I ground to the chassis via the output jack. And you're gonna want a star washer so that it bites into the metal. These switches have a nut, a lock, sitting nicely between the 2 other switches. A washer that uses the same 14 mil wrench as the other guy, except it wants to spin on us, so we have to grip it on the other side, hold the box down firm. All right. This red wire, we're making the ground link between the 2 jacks. Bring that wire underneath. And let's sync these together. All right, just tuck her down, bud. Now we just have to do the input wiring. All right, gonna link the switch together. And then white is input, blue is output. So I would actually like these wires to go lower. Loosen this so I can route them underneath. Mind you, I don't know what's more surgical. Wiring the switch or, oh boy, last 2 connections. Hooking the jacks up to the switch. I do believe that's it. The final connection has been made. This thing is all put together now. Ooh, is it bad luck to put the knobs on before you test it? I'm starting to feel like it is. So, we won't. Now, I need to grab the multimeter. We need to check the state of this battery I'm gonna test it with. 8.9, close enough. I know 8.9 sounds good in these pedals. I use a rechargeable battery, my personal one. Fits in there well enough. Use this nice lettuce elastic to keep it into place while we tinker on it. So, by default, we run this with a pair of 158s. EGC 158s are equivalent to the NTE 158s that I have in my pedal. So I know they'll be good. They look a bit different. Same part number, but they look a bit different. That's funny. All right, let us bias it turn it on, connect our meter to the ground prong, and just jam it in one of these holes. Point 3. Either it's not working or it's dialed in real low. Wait, what are our bias points again? Q1's supposed to be 0.7. Or what was my spec again? It was 5.05 Q2 multiplied by 0.138. 6969. So we'll go 7 now. Let's configure this one. See how well this smaller potentiometer is going to work. Oh yeah, easier. 5.05. Oh, these test points are nice. 6.9. You got to go back and forth till they synchronize. There we go. We got it to 50569. This thing should be ready to rip now. Whew! Just got a little guitar going here. Let's plug in said guitar. We got the JCM 800 plugging into low channel. This pedal sounds good with the 800 in low channel. Bring master to about halfway. That should be stock position. Guitar's plugged in. Volume's on. Oh, I don't have the output capacitor in place. We're gonna start off with the stock 10NF. So my preferred output capacitor, oh boy, that's a tight jack, is actually this Murata 0.01 MLCC. Now let's just stick something arbitrary. I got an 8.2 NF here. We'll put that in the other input capacitor position. See what difference that makes. Now 8.2 NFs, that's pretty small. Definitely a lot less low end. I'm thinking something bigger. Well, you know what? Let's take the 0.1. Put that in there. I'll put our stock cap back in this position. Noticed the obnoxious hiss isn't there. It's not. Oh yeah, bud, that cap job worked. That 220 NF. You realize, of course, what this means. It means I'm gonna have to retool mine. Oh boy. Because I'm digging the sound of that other capacitor. It just takes a little bit of the bleh out of it. Now we should be doing a side-by-side comparison to see what they're like. Now this 683 is the stock chosen capacitor for this pedal in particular. The sound isn't that far off from the 0.1. Just the 0.1's got a little something extra. Oh. Listen to the difference in noise. Man, that cap makes a huge difference. In stock mode, they sound almost identical, so that's a small victory. The only thing left to figure out is what happens if we try different transistors. Hold bud. 2N1307s. Too bad I lost my pick in the void. Slowing us down. Oh, it was under the pedal. I'm getting carried away. I like these 1307s. They are flippin' sweet in this pupper, bud. Well, let's try a pair of the 520As that didn't work at all in the Rangemaster. Yeah, the range just dumps right out on them. You can't see it on the multimeter, but it went from 5 volts down to like 2 volts. This pedal has enough range for them. Still way mellow. Maybe these 520s don't have a lot of HFE. Ever quiet though, but that's because there's nothing there. To which I respond, surely you jest. What happens if we frickin' crank on this? Yeah, I don't even feel like playing with these 520s right now. I paid more for them than the rest of which is disappointing. Because they're not doing it all. However, I do have a pair of these TR84s, which even if I really like them in here, tough. The TR84 is one of my favorite transistors in the Rangemaster thus far. Will they also be a favorite in here? Let's find out. That was a success. Now, those TR84s are my favorite in the Rangemaster, but not necessarily my favorite in this pedal. I think I was preferring the 1N1307s by Texas Instruments. So if you want to build a fuzz face, highly recommend these. Just like from what I'm hearing now, it's just bomb. It's just bomb. It works. So I think I got a pass on the TR84s. We'll save that for the Rangemaster. All that's left to do is put on some knobs. These are the knobs that I've chosen because they feel reasonably good quality and they do look good on this enclosure. Quite. And the paint job. This thing is nice. This thing is nice. Huh, it's almost a shame to sell it. Maybe I'll put some hot snot glue to reinforce some of these components because, like, you know, this guy's got some wiggle in it, this guy's got some wiggle in it. But we're done here. We're done here. Another successful pedal build. I'm thinking I need to retool and rework my pedal. As good as it is stock, oh, you know what? I don't think I can just add sockets into this. Oh boy, I think I'd have to completely start over. I'll have to think about it because I'm really digging the sounds of those 1307s. I had a little breakthrough in testing here. You see, in the optional capacitor slot, I put the 10N.01 and then I plugged into the high channel on my Marshall and I cranked the gain, and wouldn't you know it, it sounds thin as frig in the low channel with that capacitor. In the high channel, that's with the optional capacitor. If I switch it back to stock mode, woolly, what you expect, but filtering all the low end out of the friggin' input bud. Now let's take the optional capacitor and let's replace it with a 0.022, twice that rating. Now it does get just a little bit on the warm side, reminds me of a gray spec 250. But the mid boost for like soloing, the Fuzz Face actually makes a pretty freaking good overdrive with a little bit of low frequency filtering in the front end. Oh boy, this changes everything the way I look at this pedal. Oh, ooh. Do I rework mine or do I build another one? Oh boy, I don't know. So, I hope you've enjoyed this. How's this for an outro? Hey, you like that? It's 3D. Do you have your glasses on? Oh, if only I was filming in 3D. Ha 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 ha. Can you even broadcast in 3D on YouTube? Someone would be doing it already if you could. See ya!